The fourth tale, The Bear Man and the Princess's Tears. A kidnapped princess. The king of a peaceful kingdom had one daughter whom he loved very much. This princess was very brave and very wise and assisted her father in ruling the kingdom. Hard by the edge of a kingdom was a steep mountain. No one ever approached it, however, for it was known that a witch lived in a cave at its foot. This witch had long had an inclination to rule the kingdom herself, but the fearless princess never failed to foil her plans. The witch had an apprentice who was top half bear and bottom half man. This apprentice was known as the Bear Man, for that was his name, and was fearsomely strong but very dull-witted, and always carried out the witch's commands to the letter. One day the Bear Man was in the cave making potion, when the witch returned with a young woman. It was, yes, guess, the princess who was always ruining her plans. The Bear Man looked at the princess and was twice shocked. Firstly, at how wondrous fair she was, and secondly, at the sight of her hands and feet, which the witch had turned to wood using magic. "Look after the princess," the witch commanded the Bear Man. "Do not let her to get hungry or shed a single tear, else there shall be trouble." The Bear Man immediately went to fetch some fruits and preserves from the larder. Since the princess's hands had been turned to wood, the Bear Man tried to put the fruit in her mouth directly, but the princess turned away from him and looked instead at the witch. "What will you do with me?" "I shall tell your father that I have taken you hostage," the witch replied, "and demand his kingdom in return for your freedom." "That would be a waste of time," retorted the princess. "Father is always telling me not to believe anything witches say. He will not trust you even if I am in mortal danger." "Silence!" shrieked the witch, and with a wave of her wand cursed the princess, who became quite unable to speak. The witch had stolen her voice. The Bear Man's duties. The next day, the witch went to the palace to negotiate with the king, and it was left to the Bear Man to provide for their royal hostage. The Bear Man liked looking after the princess. He felt sorry for her with her wooden limbs and stolen voice, and he tried his very best to take care of her. The Bear Man was in fact very kind, you see, and despised doing evil things. He was happy knowing that the witch would not scold him for being kind to the princess. After all, it was the witch herself who had commanded him to look after her. But while the princess did not shed a single tear, neither did she smile so much as once. The Bear Man used the finest ingredients to cook dishes that he hoped would make the princess happy, but when the meals were served, she would do more than stare at him in total silence. Now, the Bear Man knew that the princess would only smile when her hands and legs were free again, and she had regained her voice. But the Bear Man could not lift the curses himself, and he knew that the witch would never do it. All he could do was continue to cook fine meals for the princess. The princess who wouldn't cry. Several days passed, and still the king would not listen to the witch's demands, just as the princess had foretold. This did nothing for the witch's mood, of course, and one morning, when the Bear Man was bringing food to the princess as usual, the witch shouted at him, "Why are you wasting such good food on her? Anything will do as long as it stops her from crying." "But I thought the princess would be happier if she could eat fine foods, mistress." "Who told you to make her happy?" With that, the witch snatched up her wand and, with the flick of her wrist, rendered the princess stony deaf. She then proceeded to tell the Bear Man a secret. "There is a reason why I told you to stop her from crying. If she sheds but a single tear, all of her curses will be lifted at once." The Bear Man now realized that the witch had not wanted him to be kind to the princess or to look after her. She had simply wanted him to stop her from crying. He now knew what he had to do to make the princess happy once more. The next time the witch left the cave, the Bear Man put his paws around the princess's rosy neck and started twisting. Yet she still did not cry. The Bear Man felt he had no choice but to strike her. He was strong, and the poor princess was unbalanced on her wooden legs. She fell to the ground violently. Now cry! I beseech you, cry and all your curses shall be lifted! The deaf princess lay on the ground, clearly in pain, yet she still did not cry. She simply continued to stare directly at the bear man. The bear man, for his part, resolved to treat the princess with great cruelty. He stopped feeding her, set snakes and insects upon her, and pulled out her beautiful golden hair. The bear man tried his best to be brutish, but when he looked upon the princess, in agony, he felt so sorry for her that he started sobbing. Though he hurriedly wiped the tears away with his big paw, knowing that he must not let the princess see him crying, it was too late. The princess had realized that something was amiss, and resolved not to shed a single tear, no matter what ordeals the bear man put her through. The bear man snarled and bared his teeth and treated the princess more cruelly than ever, but the princess was very brave and very wise, and did not shed a single tear. Tears at last. A month passed, and the witch visited the king once more. When she returned to the cave this time, however, her mood had changed.
The king refuses to negotiate. There is no point in keeping a hostage anymore. It is time to kill her.
Upon which she waved her wand once more, sending a deadly arrow whistling towards the princess. The bear man immediately threw his great bulk in front of her, shielding her from the arrow which pierced his chest. As he crashed to the ground, the wand fell from the witch's hand. The bear man's fate was sealed, but with his last morsel of energy, he opened his eyes and looked up at the princess. She stared back at him, her eyes wide. I have done such terrible things. I will die an evil man in your eyes. Such were the bear man's sorrowful thoughts as he perished. As he did so, tears fell in a flood from the princess's eyes, raining down upon her wooden feet and arms, lifting the curse and returning her to normal. The princess immediately stood, picked up the witch's wand, and used it to draw a rune, for the princess could use magic as well, you see. A large fire engulfed the cave, and the witch's wailing could be heard for miles around. Once the blaze had subsided, nothing remained of the witch, save for a small pile of pitch-black ashes. At that moment, the bear man was brought back to life as a beautiful young prince, for his dull-witted bear form was nothing but a curse imposed upon him by the wicked witch. The prince asked in a weak voice, for he was still upon the brink of death, "Your Highness, why did you cry for me?" "Witnessing your death, it filled me with a terrible sorrow. Had I only known that crying would lift my curse, I should have done so far sooner. I see now that you were trying to help me, even as you did those horrible things." "I treated you terribly, Your Highness. Please forgive me." "Of course I forgive you. You are a kind person at heart, and for that I am truly grateful. Now please, do not die." Upon hearing these words, the prince shed one final tear and breathed his last. The forbidden spell. The princess stared at the prince's lifeless body for a long while, before picking up the wand once more with conviction. She had settled upon a course of action. She would cast Ashes of Resurrection. Upon casting the spell, the cave was filled with white light, restoring breath to the prince's lungs as it shone upon him. The princess's spell had brought him back to life. The very next moment, however, the princess fell to the ground. As she lay there, she raised her face and asked the prince, "Who are you?" "Ashes of Resurrection is a forbidden spell," he replied mournfully. "Those who cast it always pay a terrible price. The price you have paid is your memory of me." And the prince's eyes filled with tears of terrible sadness once more. "Why are you crying?" asked the puzzled princess. "Because something important has been lost." Upon hearing the princess's next words, however, the prince could not help but smile. "Well, perhaps together we may make it anew?" And that, as they say,